Welcome, everybody, to the Predictive Playbook. I'm your host, John Ryan. We're going to talk about the NBA Finals, which start tonight. But first, as you might see, my good buddy here, Jesse Schule of Sportsmemo.com, who's on some incredible win streaks right now, but we'll get to that a little bit later. I think he looks a little bit different. I couldn't tell whether it was his lighting, and the producer wouldn't tell me if it was the lighting. But, Jesse, everything okay?
Yeah, well, as you know, I'm pretty big on the soccer, and with the European Championships, the England national team has said that if they win it all, they're all going to dye their hair blonde, like Phil Foden. My son's a really huge England fan, and he wanted to join the party. He's celebrating a little early, and I promised I'd join along with them, just being a good dad, you know.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. I think that takes a lot of guts to do that. To be honest with you, I not that you look bad. It's just
I,
that it
I'm
just seems like
happily
a fun
married, you
thing to
know.
do, and yeah, all good. So we're here to talk about the finals. I know your history, but I'd rather have you tell the listeners and viewers how incredibly good you have been with futures bets in finals and your records going back to as far as 2016, 2017 season. So tell us how you did. I mean, it's just remarkable.
Well, incredibly good, maybe incredibly lucky as well to a certain degree. But back in 2017, I was looking at the odds offered for all the different props on the NBA Finals, and it was the first time I decided to really stack up a whole load of props before the finals started. And I put out six futures bets for the series, and ended up winning all six. And most of those bets were on the player performance totals. It was the Warriors against the Cavs, of course, and the Warriors were the biggest favorite in the finals for decades. They were over a 10-1 favorite. So it seemed pretty clear it was going to be a short series. I mean, it looked like it could be a sweep, 5 games at the most in my mind. And the player performance totals were all based on season averages with the expectation that the series would go 6 games. I mean, if you did the math, you'd say, well, LeBron's averaging this amount of points per game, and if you times that by six, that's what they're offering, over or under that number. And so I just hit all the unders on the key players for the Cavs and a few of the role players for the Warriors, thinking, as long as this series ends in 4 or 5 games, should be easy winnings. And sure enough, it was.
Yeah, good for you. It's just awesome stuff. And then what that also means is that you should get over to sportsmemo.com and get his picks and releases once he has them posted on the site, which I'm sure either has happened for some or is going to happen later today, since game one is tonight. And speaking of game one, we have the third seed, Milwaukee Bucks, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on ABC, going against the number 2 seed from the Western Conference. They are the Western Conference champions, Phoenix Suns. I think the Suns were a little bit surprising that they're there. I think Milwaukee is the biggest surprise as a finalist, given that Giannis got hurt and a whole bunch of other things that they had to endure. That series against the Nets looked like it was going to be a real quick series, won by the Nets. And then, lo and behold, Milwaukee comes all the way back and wins in Game 7. And then they took on the Hawks. Both superstars were out in that conference final. But as we saw, Middleton and Holiday, they're the guys that carried the ball. They lead the team in possession minutes. And they had the easier time adjusting because Giannis was fourth on that list compared to Atlanta, who Trae Young has more than double the time possessing the basketball than any other teammate. So it sounds a little bit like not sharing the ball versus a team that does. And Milwaukee is the fastest paced team during the regular season. So Jesse, what do you think about game one tonight in the series?
Well, I think that you can expect surprises. I mean, it's not that either of these teams are a surprise. I mean, the whole playoffs have been a surprise. Injuries, of course, have played a big role. It really is anybody's game. I'm sure we haven't seen the last of the injuries, Chris Paul does have a history of being injured in the past as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to give too much away. I do have
Of
plays
course.
on the winner of the series. I have another prop bet, and I've got a play on the MVP, which is pretty much what I had out last year for last year's finals. Of course, I have swept 3 of the last 4 years with my finals futures. Last year's picks were LeBron to win the MVP and the Lakers to win the series on a series handicap minus 1.5 games, and the Lakers to win game one and the series, a double bet there, which sounds pretty square. I'm sure that's not going to impress too many people, but hey, you got to bet what you think's going to win, and as square as that sounds, it looks pretty good when you win all 3 of those bets and cash all 3 tickets.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking at the odds here. I certainly don't want to give away the package, but guys, I mean, you heard that he swept these bets several seasons. It's not luck, and it doesn't cost you that much to go over to sportsmemo.com and get them. It's a no-brainer to me, and you're missing out if you don't go do it. Plain and simple. I am seeing current lines right now over 219, paying 112 vig, plus 215 money line for the Bucks in game one. Phoenix minus 265. Phoenix now is up to 6.5 point favorite after the news of Giannis being confirmed as out. What else can I talk about here? Player props. I kind of wait till the Manny show. Manny's Irish Pub starts at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Monday through Friday, and that's where we really dive deep into these player props by everybody that's on the panel. Tony Finn, Rob Vino, including Jesse Schule, Tony Mejia will be on later today, I believe. So it's a really good cast of professional sports bettors that have been doing this for decades. And the reason they're doing it for decades is they were successful at it. It all falls into place, right? But I'm looking at player to score first field goal of the game. And why is Giannis listed now? He's actually the favorite. That makes no sense to me. Does it you, Jesse?
Maybe somebody's expecting him to pull off a big surprise. Who
Wow.
knows?
Because the line's telling me that he's not playing because it was 5.5 this morning at 6 a.m.
That being said, it wouldn't be the first time somebody's been confirmed out and
Yep.
has actually last second they end up starting. I can't remember who that was, but that has happened already this year in the playoffs.
It sure has. And this particular site, I certainly don't want to throw it under the bus, but it's DraftKings. They have a line for him scoring first, but then I look at points and he's not listed. Which maybe that's what it's telling us, Jesse, is that he's going to start or try to start, and that they won't put up points, rebounds, and assists for him because they don't know how long he's going to be able to play.
Well, when it
That's
comes
an
to
interesting.
Giannis, I will say, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag on who I like in game one or for the series, but I honestly think if you like the Bucks, you should hope he doesn't start. It doesn't sound like he's 100%. It sounds like he's still, suffering a little bit from that knee injury. And I think we saw that. I'm not going to say that the Bucks are better off without Giannis. I know there has been some people saying that, but I will say that they're better off without an injured Giannis. And if he's not 100%, I think they're far better off just coming out, knowing what they're up against, coming out with a game plan without him and no confusion, and then attacking from that point, which is what we saw in the last 2 games against the Hawks in the Eastern Conference Finals. And they did just fine. If Chris Middleton can hit the majority of his shots, which seems to be a 50-50 shot, he's hot one day and off the next day. But if he's going to hit his shots, they're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, no question. No question there for sure. The 2 prop bets I will give out here on the show, and I will do this again. I'll repeat it on the 4 o'clock Manny's Irish Pub show. I'm going with it would seem like the two studs for the game. Chris Middleton as we all know, scored the first 16 points of the third quarter of that last game against the Hawks, and that was something I truly was unbelievably enamored with. I just could not believe what I was watching, but it was tremendous. So his confidence has to be up through the roof. So I like over 27.5. Minus 103 VIG makes it even better. And I also like Devin Booker, the same points, over 27.5. I have to pay minus 120 for that. That's the max I will ever pay for a prop bet. And I'm willing to try to work that at other books to try to get a minus 115 number if at all possible. But that's what we have for game one. And I certainly don't want to give away who I think is going to win the series. But we do have a series in hockey, and we didn't talk about this backstage, but I did think that Montreal was going to win last night, and that came through. Took overtime.
I had Montreal as well.
I just kind of thought that Tampa would be just enough flat, knowing that, I mean, I don't care what coach you have in the world. As a motivator, when your team knows that they are superior by leaps and bounds over the opponent, that's where a head coach really has trouble getting the team to really focus at the level they did for those first two games. Despite that, it took overtime for Montreal to win. And I haven't done the research yet, I haven't run my models yet, but my gut's telling me that this thing's going to be over in Tampa, and probably by a significant margin. I can't imagine Montreal going in there and pulling off a win. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, well, I will say that I wasn't happy with the comments from the Montreal players after the win. They sort of framed it as we weren't ready to go home yet. They're almost suggesting that by winning one game, they've accomplished something, almost suggesting they're going back to Tampa expecting to lose. So I can't argue with somebody who's going to say, well, Tampa's going to slaughter them in game five. That's certainly the most likely outcome. However, I will disagree that Tampa is that superior and has been that superior. I sort of feel like results have been a little worse than Montreal has deserved. Carey Price hasn't been himself in the first three games. He let in quite a few bad goals, a lot of screenshots, a lot of bad bounces. Game two, Montreal dominated game two. And really, if they had have won game two as they deserved to win, the series would be tied right now. And, I don't think it's impossible for Montreal to get lucky. And I wouldn't count them out at this point. I mean, Tampa's the better team maybe, but I think they're not invincible. Montreal can beat them. They've proven they could beat them. And it's really unfortunate that they lost game two. They dominated that game, out shooting them 43-23. And they've gotten a lot of bad breaks.
They sure have. I agree with you. I think the second, at least from the end, towards the end of the second period of game two, I'm sorry, on, they really played even, if not better than Tampa Bay, but it was those bad breaks that made it impossible for them to come back. So I think what I was coming from was the angle that sometimes teams can that are winning overlook those facts that, boy, we might have been lucky winning 3-1 or 4-1. The Yankees are pretty good at that right now, being that they're at 500. But that's a topic for later today. But I think that's well said, Jesse, because Montreal is a team of magic right now. They still are the Cinderella team. I think it's now 16 of the last 19 games they've been lined as an underdog. They obviously will be an underdog again for the remainder of the series. Even if it would go Game 7, they'll be a big underdog. So I guess the value would be taking Montreal. I might just end up watching it.
Well, let's look at the history. I mean, the last time we saw a team come back from a 3-0 series deficit was when the Sharks were up 3-0 on the LA Kings. I remember it quite clearly because the LA Kings were my pick to win the Cup that year. I had the Kings in the first three games. They lost 3 straight games. And I sort of had the same feeling about that series. It's I'm not going to say Montreal is going to come back and win this series by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a similar situation where the Kings had lost to the Sharks, but it didn't really look like they were getting completely outclassed to me. And I certainly wasn't surprised when they came storming back and won the series and then went on to win the Stanley Cup. I mean, clearly I wasn't surprised because they were my pick before the playoffs started. And I think, it may be a long shot, but if you're looking for a huge lottery ticket type bet, Montreal could pull this off if they could. I mean, the next game's the key. I mean, if they could somehow pull a win out of Tampa, then they're coming back to Montreal to force a game 7, and all of a sudden we got a series on our hands.
That is true. I'm looking for the odds here just to see where we're at. Right now we're plus 185 for game number 5. Tampa's minus 220, puck line. Tampa Bay's minus 1.5, plus 125. Over 5 is laying minus 130 VIG, so obviously there's a lot of over bettors out there. I would have to think if Montreal's going to win this game, it would have to go to the under. Tampa just takes advantages of their mistakes. And to your point, if Montreal had a little bit less misfortune, which some of those goals were horrifically bad luck, and not make the mistakes they've made at the blue line sometimes that have led to scores, this series could be knotted up. But it's not.
Unfortunately, even in the last game, Tampa's goals seem to be a result of some sloppy play, chances to clear the puck and not making the most of it.
Yeah, that's the key. Tampa has the ability that when you make a mistake in your own zone, it's almost like they have an extra guy out there. And then it becomes increasingly more difficult for the Canadians to get the puck out of the zone, and then we know what the result is. But guys, make sure you get Jesse's picks for the NBA Finals. If you do anything today, for example, you don't have to go buy my total on Game 1 tonight, even though I'm 80% with totals in the NBA playoffs. It's better to get these futures bets. He has a track record of excellence, and you're just not going to go wrong. You're going to understand immediately why these are great bets to make. They're terrific opportunities. Of course, nothing is guaranteed, but he has a track record, like I said, of excellence that you can depend on, and have him start working for you. That's what you're doing. You're buying the picks, and then his work and his expertise, he's providing it to you. He's working for you. And, not too many places offer that kind of service, let alone the expertise. So, Jesse, thanks for being on the show today. I think we'll see you later today, possibly on the Manny's Pub show. So that'll be awesome because I know everyone will like the English haircut. I think that's what I'll call it.
I made a wisecrack about your age the other day, so I guess you guys can get me back and make some wisecracks about me.
Well, I actually forget that. I have a short memory. Baseball players, we don't remember too much. But that'll be great to have you on.
Let's just quickly remind everybody, I feel a little bit embarrassed that bragging about winning with the Lakers in last year's finals because they were the favorite, and sounds like a bit of a square bet. Keep in mind, in 2019, I did have the Raptors to upset the Warriors. I believe I read a headline in the Washington Post saying 10 out of 10 experts are picking the Warriors to sweep, and Stephen A. Smith called for the Warriors to sweep. I did have the Raptors. I also had Kawhi to win the MVP, and I also had a big prop bet on the Raptors to win Game 1 in the series.
That's awesome. Yeah, sentiment applies to the financial markets just like it does in the sports betting markets. You get too many bulls on one team that think like that. Even the headline media people you mentioned, them as a collective group are smart people, just as we are. But when we're all aligned, facing the same direction, it seems for whatever reason the opposite tends to occur, and that's an important fact. So anyway, I'll see you later today around 4:15ish, I guess. We'll start at 4. We'll firm up the time. I'm just trying to give people a chance to come on if they want to specifically see you, which would be understandable for sure. And I guess that's about it for this show, Jesse. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. So, for Jesse Schule, myself, the Predictive Playbook, Sportsmemo.com, and WagerTalk.com,